The Valentine Witch. The forest was alive with whispers. As the crimson sky surrendered to the navy shroud of night, the wind carried secrets through the trees. The traveler walked cautiously, each step crunching on the frost-kissed leaves. They clutched the frayed parchment in their hand. A map, sketched with more desperation than precision. The legend of the Valentine Witch had drawn them here, deep into the whispering woods, where the veil between the ordinary and the enchanted was said to thin. It wasn't the first time the traveler had sought a solution for their aching heart. They had tried flowers, words woven with poetry, even the guidance of a village priest who spoke of patience and divine timing. None of it had worked. Their beloved remained distant, not cruel, but unreachable, as if they stood behind a glass wall the traveler could never shatter. Despair had led them to the edge of reason, and finally, to the witch. As the sky deepened to velvet, the forest grew stranger. Trees leaned unnaturally close, their gnarled branches forming shapes, like fingers poised to snatch. The traveler swore they heard the trees breathing, their creaks and groans forming almost words. But fear could not outweigh the ache in their chest, and so they pressed on, until a faint glow appeared ahead. The witch's cottage was more alive than any dwelling had a right to be. Moss and ivy curled up its walls, their roots pulsing faintly like veins. A crooked chimney spewed smoke that rose into heart-shaped wisps before dissipating into the night. The windows glowed, though the flickering light within was oddly cold. Above the door, an iron heart swung from a chain, clinking softly in the wind like a clock marking time. The traveler hesitated at the threshold. The map was useless now. They were here. But to knock was to surrender to forces they could not understand, perhaps could not control. They thought of their beloved's laughter, their fleeting smiles, and that glass wall they so longed to break. With a deep breath, they raised their hand and rapped 3 times. The sound seemed to echo far too long, as if the wood itself carried the knock deep into the earth. Silence stretched, and then a voice. "Enter." The word was neither invitation nor command, but something in between, spoken in a tone that made the traveler's stomach clench. The door creaked open without their touch, revealing a room that seemed larger on the inside than the outside had promised. Shadows flickered across walls, adorned with ancient symbols, their meanings as elusive as smoke. 1,000 candles burned, their flames dancing in an unseen breeze. And there, at the center of it all, sat the Valentine Witch. She was not the crone the traveler had imagined, but something far more disconcerting. Her face was smooth, ageless, her hair a cascade of black silk. Shot through with strands of silver, her eyes, luminous and colorless, held no warmth, only knowing. Draped in a gown that shimmered like moonlight on water, she seemed at once human and something other. "You have come to me for love," she said, her voice low and melodic, as if she already knew the traveler's story. The traveler's throat tightened, but they managed a nod. The witch's lips curved into something that was almost a smile, but not quite. "Love," she mused, rising from her seat with the fluid grace of a shadow stretching. "So many come for it, thinking it is something I can grant. But love cannot be given, only earned." "I'm willing to do anything," the traveler blurted. "Anything it takes." The witch tilted her head, her eyes narrowing. "Anything you say?" "Be careful with such words. Love demands more than most can bear to give. Still, if you wish to try." She gestured toward a table draped in crimson silk. Upon it sat 3 objects, a rose, a key, and a shard of glass that caught the candlelight and refracted it into jagged rainbows. "These are your trials," she said. "To claim the rose, you must endure pain. To claim the key, you must confront your fears. And the shard, well, we will come to that in time." The traveler's heart thundered. "What happens if I fail?" The witch's smile deepened, becoming something that chilled the air. "Then the heart you seek will remain forever beyond your reach. But if you succeed, the veil will lift, and you shall find the truth." Before the traveler could respond, the witch raised a hand, and the room dissolved into darkness. When the world returned, the traveler stood not in the cottage, but in the forest once more. The night had grown impossibly still, and ahead of them, 3 figures emerged from the shadows. The first was a silver fox, its fur gleaming as if woven from starlight. The second, a raven with feathers that shimmered like black opal. The third, a doe crowned with antlers that held a single ruby, glowing faintly like a heartbeat. The witch's voice echoed in the traveler's mind. "Follow them, learn their truths, and perhaps you will earn your heart's desire." The animal stared, unblinking, and then began to move, leading the traveler into the unknown. The forest shifted around the traveler as the animals led them forward, its familiar shapes dissolving into something more otherworldly. The trees grew taller, their bark glimmering faintly as if threaded with silver veins. The ground softened, moss spreading underfoot in hues of emerald and sapphire. The air itself seemed to hum, carrying faint melodies that teased the edge of recognition. It was a place that felt alive, though not entirely welcoming. The animals stopped at the edge of a clearing. In the center stood the witch, though her presence was even more unsettling in this strange domain. Her gown no longer shimmered like moonlight. It absorbed the darkness, her form outlined by the faint glow of the enchanted creatures beside her. "You did not think I would simply send you into the woods without understanding the cost of what you seek, did you?" she asked, her tone as smooth and cold as a still lake at midnight. The traveler hesitated. the weight of her words settling over them like a cloak. What do you mean? You said there were tasks. Tasks, yes, she replied, gesturing toward the fox, the raven, and the doe. But before you begin, we must establish the terms. A bargain, as all things in magic must be. The traveller swallowed hard. The stories had not mentioned a bargain, only the witch's tasks. But the pull of their beloved's face, their voice, their touch, always just out of reach, drove them to nod. I'll do whatever it takes. The witch's smile was a sliver of moonlight, cold and sharp. Bold words, traveller. Let us see if they hold weight. She stepped closer, her eyes boring into the traveller's soul. First, you must understand this. The heart you seek may not be the one you hold in the end. Love, true love, is not always what we imagine. Are you willing to accept this risk? The traveller faltered. The thought of their beloved, ethereal and perfect in their memory, was the very reason they were here. But was it possible that the witch's tests would reveal something different? Their hands clenched. Yes, they whispered. I accept. The witch's head tilted, her hair falling like liquid shadow over one shoulder. Good, but a bargain must demand something in return. Should you fail, not only will you lose the chance at love, but you will also lose your own heart. I will keep it here, in this forest, as a reminder to others of the price of hubris. Do you still wish to proceed? The traveller's breath caught. The stakes were higher than they'd imagined, the thought of failure more harrowing, but their resolve was stronger than fear. Yes, they said firmly, their voice steady despite the tremor in their chest. The witch raised her hands, and the clearing seemed to darken. The animals moved closer, their glowing forms casting faint, rippling light. The fox circled the traveller, its eyes gleaming with an intelligence far beyond any ordinary beast. The raven perched on a low branch, tilting its head as if scrutinizing the traveller's every thought. The doe stood motionless, regal and serene, its ruby gem glowing faintly like a dying ember. These are your guides and your judges, the witch said. They will lead you through the trials. But beware, their guidance is not without its traps. The fox will test your endurance. The raven will challenge your courage. And the doe, her voice trailed off, her gaze turning far away. The doe will show you your deepest vulnerability. Trust them, mistrust them, follow them or defy them. It matters not to me. Only the strength of your heart will see you through. The traveller nodded, their pulse quickening. And the tasks? They asked, glancing at the witch. What must I do? The witch's lips curved into a smile that was almost pitying. Ah, but the tasks are not mine to explain. They will unfold as you follow your guides. Do not seek to understand them before their time. Love, after all, is not meant to be understood. It is meant to be felt. She stepped back into the shadows, her form dissolving as the forest seemed to shift again, the clearing melting into an unfamiliar path. The animals turned toward the traveler, their glowing forms casting long shadows. "Begin," the witch's voice echoed faintly, as if carried on the wind, "and may the truth of your heart guide you." With that, the fox began to trot forward, its movements smooth and purposeful. The raven cawed once before taking to the air, its wings a blur against the dark canopy above. The doe lingered for a moment, its ruby gem pulsing faintly, before following the fox with graceful, deliberate steps. The traveler hesitated, their heart pounding as the reality of their choice set in. Then, with a deep breath, they followed the silver fox, stepping deeper into the forest and closer to the unknown. The silver fox moved silently, its paws gliding over the forest floor as if it weighed nothing at all. The traveler followed, their steps clumsy by comparison, each crunch of leaves or snap of twigs echoing in the stillness. The forest around them seemed alive, its gnarled branches shifting as though watching. The fox turned its head briefly, its golden eyes catching the light. "Endurance," it said, though its mouth did not move. The voice resonated within the traveler's mind, soft but commanding. "You seek love, yet love is no fleeting pleasure. It is forged through pain, through patience, through paths most would never dare tread. Can you endure?" The traveler nodded instinctively, but the fox's gaze did not soften. Instead, it turned and darted forward, its sleek body weaving into a thicket of thorny brambles. The path was a snarl of thorns, their tips glinting like knives. The fox paused just beyond, its luminous fur a beacon amidst the dark undergrowth. "Follow," it whispered. The traveler hesitated. The brambles were vicious, their barbs waiting to tear flesh from bone. But a deeper voice within, the same voice that had driven them to the witch's door, urged them onward. With trembling hands, they pushed into the thicket. The first thorn bit deep, slicing across their palm. A sharp, stinging pain flared, but they gritted their teeth and pressed on. The brambles clawed at their clothes, their skin, each step an agony. Blood welled from countless cuts, staining the forest floor with crimson drops. The air grew heavy, the scent of earth and iron mingling. "Why do you continue?" The fox's voice drifted from somewhere ahead. "Do you think the one you seek is waiting for you on the other side? Perhaps they are, but perhaps they are not. Would you still endure this pain for the mere chance of their love?" The traveler paused, their breath ragged. The question struck deep, the doubt coiling around their resolve, like the thorns around their limbs. But then they remembered the witch's warning. Love is not a guarantee, only a hope. And hope, fragile as it was, burned brighter than the pain. "Yes," they whispered hoarsely. "I would." The fox's golden eyes gleamed approvingly as it vanished deeper into the brambles. The traveler pushed onward, their resolve hardening with each step. When they finally emerged, they collapsed onto soft moss, bloodied but victorious. Before them lay a single crimson rose, its petals glistening with dew that shimmered like tears. The fox appeared beside the flower, its fur unruffled, its gaze calm. "You have endured. Take this and carry its lesson with you." The traveller reached for the rose, their fingers trembling. The petals were soft, cool against their touch. But as they grasped it, a thorn pricked their skin, drawing a fresh bead of blood. The fox said nothing, only watching as the traveller tucked the flower into their coat. A sharp call broke the silence, drawing the traveller's attention upward. The raven circled high above, its iridescent feathers catching fleeting moonlight. With a final cry, it swooped low, landing on a branch nearby. "Fear," it rasped. "To love is to face the shadows within and without. Follow me." The raven launched into the air, its wings slicing through the night. The traveller rose, their body aching, and stumbled after it. The forest shifted again, the mossy ground giving way to jagged rocks that led to a sheer cliff overlooking a stormy sea. The raven perched on the edge, its black eyes reflecting the churning waves below. "Your next test lies within the depths," it croaked, its voice sharp as broken glass. From its beak, it dropped a key that glinted silver before plummeting into the angry waters below. The traveller stared, their stomach churning as the waves crashed against the rocks. The ocean seemed alive, its fury palpable. "You expect me to dive in?" they asked, their voice trembling. "Love does not wait for safety," the raven replied. "If you cannot face fear, you cannot hold love." A deep breath, a silent prayer, and the traveller leapt. The icy water closed around them like a shroud, its cold biting into their bones. The waves tossed them mercilessly, pulling them under again and again. But the traveller fought, their hands searching blindly through the depths. At last, their fingers closed around the key, its surface smooth and impossibly warm. Clutching it tightly, they fought their way to the surface, gasping for air as they broke through the waves. Dragging themselves onto the rocky shore, they collapsed, the key still clutched in their hand. The raven landed beside them, its beady eyes unreadable. "You have faced your fear," it said. "Keep this, and remember its weight." The key shimmered faintly as the traveller slipped it into their pocket. Their body ached, their spirit weary, but they rose once more, scanning the forest for their next guide. The doe emerged from the shadows, its ruby gem pulsing softly. It stood still, its gaze steady, as if waiting for the traveller to gather their strength. The final trial awaited. The doe stood motionless at the edge of the forest clearing, its ruby gem casting faint crimson light across the ground. The traveller, battered and weary, felt an odd sense of calm in its presence. Unlike the fox, whose gaze had been piercing, and the raven, whose voice had been sharp. The doe exuded a quiet strength. It tilted its head, the ruby catching the moonlight, and then turned, stepping gracefully into the shadows. The traveler followed, each step heavy but determined. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath. The usual sounds of rustling leaves and distant whispers gone. Even the wind had stilled. The silence was thick, almost oppressive, as if the world itself knew that this task would be different. The doe led them to a glade bathed in pale moonlight. At its center stood a crystalline pool, its surface so still it seemed to mirror the sky perfectly. The traveler hesitated at the edge, sensing the weight of the moment. The doe stood on the opposite side of the pool, its ruby gem glowing brighter now, pulsing in a rhythm that matched the traveler's heartbeat. "This is the final test," the doe said, its voice soft but resonant, like the first note of a song. "You have endured pain and faced your fears, but love demands more. To truly love, you must give yourself wholly, without expectation or certainty. Step into the pool, and it will show you the truth of your heart." The traveler frowned. "The truth of my heart?" The doe nodded, its eyes reflecting the pool's shimmering light. "You may see your greatest joy, your deepest sorrow, or the void where love has no root. What lies beneath the surface is not for me to say. Only you can face it." The traveler hesitated, their mind a swirl of doubt and longing. They thought of their beloved, their smile, their laugh, the way their presence could brighten the darkest of days. But they also thought of the witch's warning. Love is not always what we imagine. What if the pool revealed something they could not bear to face? The doe's voice broke through their thoughts. "The pool does not deceive. It reflects only what already resides within you." Taking a deep breath, the traveler stepped forward. The water was cool but not cold, its surface rippling slightly as they waded in. With each step, the pool grew deeper, until they were submerged to their waist. The traveler looked down, the moonlit surface now swirling with colors and shapes. At first, they saw their beloved, their form radiant and smiling, as if waiting just beyond the glassy surface. The sight filled the traveler's chest with warmth, a flicker of hope reigniting. But then the image shifted. The beloved's smile faded, their face dissolving into mist, replaced by the traveler's own reflection. The traveler frowned. The pool grew darker, the shifting colors now forming scenes. Moments of hesitation, of doubt, of selfishness. Times when their love had been conditional, more about their own needs than the beloved's. The traveler's chest tightened as they saw themselves pulling away when their beloved had needed them most, their own fears eclipsing their devotion. Tears blurred the traveler's vision as the water churned, the final image rising to the surface. Their beloved, alone, looking toward the horizon as if waiting for something or someone they would never find. Do you see? The doe's voice came from the shore, gentle but unyielding. To love is to give, to trust, to be vulnerable. Love is not a possession. It is a gift freely offered, without demand. The travelers' knees buckled, and they fell deeper into the pool, the water closing around their chest. The realization struck like a blade. Their love had been selfish, a yearning for fulfillment, rather than a desire to truly see and honor their beloved. I understand, the traveler whispered, their voice trembling. I understand now. The water stilled. The images faded, replaced by a single rose floating on the surface, a perfect match to the one they had already claimed, but its petals glimmered faintly, as if infused with light. The traveler reached for it, and as their fingers closed around the stem, the ruby light from the doe's gem enveloped the glade. When the traveler emerged from the pool, the doe was gone. In its place stood the witch, her form shrouded in shadow, her luminous eyes unreadable. You have completed the tasks, she said, her voice softer than before. And now, the truth is yours. Love cannot be granted, only understood. Go to your beloved, not as a seeker, but as one who offers. The witch raised a hand, and the glade dissolved. The traveler now standing at the edge of the forest. The rose and key still rested in their hands, and the weight of the shard, the truth they had seen, lay heavy in their heart. The journey was over, but the test was not. Ahead lay the final step, facing their beloved with the heart they had fought to uncover. The forest released the traveler reluctantly, its shadows lingering on their heels as they stepped into the open world beyond. Dawn painted the horizon in hues of lavender and gold, the first light softening the edges of the journey they had endured. The rose rested against their chest, tucked safely within their coat, its faint glow a reminder of pain overcome. The silver key pressed against their palm, a symbol of courage, and the shard, unseen but felt, weighed heavy in their heart. Ahead lay the path to their beloved. The village was quiet, the air hushed with the expectancy of Valentine's Day, a time of love and confessions. Yet, as the traveler walked the familiar road, doubt whispered in their ear. What if their beloved did not feel the same? What if all they had endured was for naught? The witch's words echoed faintly in their mind. Love is not a guarantee, only a hope. The house stood at the end of a narrow street, bathed in the soft light of dawn. The beloved was there, silhouetted in the window, a figure wrapped in morning stillness. The sight was both comforting and terrifying. The traveler paused, their breath catching in their throat. Would they see the truth, the gift freely offered? Or would they turn away, leaving the traveler with an empty heart? The traveler approached the door, each step heavier than the last. Their hands shook as they knocked, the sound reverberating with a finality that made their chest tighten. Moments passed, each one stretching into eternity before the door opened. There they stood, the beloved. Their presence was as the traveler remembered, yet different. There was a softness in their gaze, a curiosity that seemed to reach beyond the surface. "You're here," the beloved said, their voice barely above a whisper. "I am," the traveler replied, the weight of the moment threatening to crush them. They reached into their coat, drawing out the rose. "This is for you." The beloved's eyes widened as they took the flower. The petals shimmered faintly, their glow catching the beloved's breath. "It's beautiful," they murmured, their fingers brushing against the traveler's. "But why? Why now?" The traveler hesitated. Words felt fragile, too delicate to carry the truth of what they had endured. Finally, they said, "Because I've realized what love truly means. It's not about what I want from you, but what I'm willing to give. I've been selfish, blind to the ways I failed to see you fully. This rose, this moment, it's not about what comes next. It's simply for you, no matter the answer." The beloved's expression softened, their eyes glistening. "You've changed," they said, their voice trembling. "I don't know what's happened, but I can feel it." The traveler reached into their pocket, pulling out the silver key. "This is yours too," they said. "It's a promise that I will never let fear stand between us again. I can't guarantee I'll always be perfect, but I will always try." The beloved took the key, their fingers curling around it as if it were precious. Silence hung between them, thick with unspoken words. Then the beloved stepped closer, their hand reaching for the traveler's. "I don't know if I can promise forever," they said quietly. "But I see you now, truly see you, and I want to try." The traveler's heart swelled, the shard of truth within them glowing faintly, not with pain but with clarity. Love had never been about certainty. It had always been about choosing every day, even when the path was unclear. The beloved smiled, their gaze steady. "Come inside. Let's begin again." As the traveler stepped over the threshold, the weight of their journey seemed to lift. Behind them, the witch's voice echoed faintly, a whisper carried by the wind. "You have earned this truth. Carry it wisely." The traveler looked back briefly, but the forest was gone, the world beyond now bathed in morning light. The beloved's hand in theirs was warm, grounding them in the present. And for the first time, the traveler felt not the ache of longing, but the quiet certainty of love freely offered.